John's film was a real movie. So we were all very, very excited about that.
I think for all of us who were in Excalibur, and it began so many amazing careers.
The first important movie that I was ever involved with.
To put Wagner behind the Arthurian legends was an example of pure imaginative cinema. And I thought, wow, this is incredible.
In 1981, John Boorman's epic movie, Excalibur, hit the big screen. Boorman's film career has spanned 6 decades. His movies include Point Blank, Hell in the Pacific.
Look, you do it this time. I'm tired of... Okay, I'll show you one more time, and never again, right? Do you understand that?
And the iconic and controversial Deliverance. In 1980, he began shooting what was to become the most difficult movie he had ever made, a film that tested the endurance of all involved. It had been his lifetime's dream to make this film, turning a legend into light for the world to see. This reunion of cast and crew recounts the making of Boorman's epic movie, Excalibur.
I mean, I've made, you know, some difficult films. I mean, going down that river in Deliverance was very, very tough. And shooting a film, the Emerald Forest in the Amazon rainforest, that was pretty tough too. But I think Excalibur was pretty much the toughest film, because there were so many elements to it. There was, you know, special effects and armor and loads of extras and the horses and the tough locations. And it was enormously difficult. And then all the special effects to go along with it, which we were doing in camera. So it was extremely difficult. And the weather, you know, the film looks wonderful because we were shooting usually in little bits. Just the sun would come out for 30 seconds and we'd catch it. You know, the rest of the time it's pissing with rain.
It was kind of the first experience of movie making and stuff like that. And it was on a big scale. You know, it wasn't a small film. It was, you know, a big, proper Hollywood production in the middle of Wicklow. And it was a very important event for a lot of people. But for me, it was, I mean, I had tried to go to the National Film, I was a writer basically, I tried to go to the National Film School in Britain. I got a place in it, but I couldn't afford to go because I didn't have any money, because it was very expensive at the time. So John basically provided me with a film school, really, you know, by allowing me to make that documentary on it.
Mainly it was physical. It was very difficult. If there was smoke, there was smoke. If there was water, there was water. If there was fire, there was fire. And that's what Boorman wanted. There was no CGI or anything like that. In a way, and I haven't seen it for a while, but that was sort of the charm of it. I did a thing called Troy, which was a while ago now. And of course, it was all CGI and, you know, Brad Pitt and so on and so forth. But that, we didn't have all that then. I mean, that just didn't sort of exist. When people like that film, they think they like it, its sort of roughness, you know?
Take Excalibur. Find a pool of calm water. Throw the sword into it.
No. Well, I suppose if I was making it today, there would be a lot of possibilities that didn't exist then, such as you know, computer-generated images, and the effects could have been more spectacular. Whether I would have done so, it's very hard to say, because you always make a film according to the limitations you have at the time. And often those limitations bring about things that you find solutions.
Nobody looking, is there? I'll have a go. It's just a hesitation, and then touch it, and then...
Then I was making the film here in Ireland, and so I started looking for young actors. I went to the theatre in Dublin, and I found several very, very good actors. Liam Neeson being one, and Gabriel Byrne being another. Neither of them had made a film up to that point. They'd been working in the theatre. And of course, Helen Mirren, who played Morgana, was also very inexperienced. She was a very, very good theatre actor, but she'd done very little film.
Don't you know me, Lord Merlin? Morgana of Cornwall.
For many of us, it was, if not our first experience on film, it certainly was one of our first experiences on film. To be shooting in the incredible beauty of Wicklow and Bray and that area was so amazing. It was just one of those very magical times, I think, for all of us.
I was doing Of Mice and Men at the time in the Peacock Theatre, and directed by Ray McAnally. And John Boorman came to see it, and I met him afterwards. There was 2 or 3 of us actors met John, and he talked about he was going to do this film Excalibur based on the Arthurian legends, and it was going to be a film, and of course we were all terribly excited. And he wanted to know, did we ride horses? And of course we all lied. Said, absolutely we ride horses. We're Irish, aren't we? You know.
He's our best and our bravest. Why then is he never here?
I think very few of us knew what we were doing. Having come from the theatre, I assumed that you just put a camera down and you did it once and you went home. I remember being struck by the fact that I was doing a scene with Nicol Williamson on a horse, and 2 days later, Nicol Williamson was not there, and I was on top of a ladder doing the same scene. And I said to one of the guys, "Why am I on a ladder?" And he said, "Oh, this is for the close-up." No idea how films were made.
And John was a terrific teacher too. You know, he'd set up shots for the cameras, and he would tell you what he was looking for and what the camera was actually going to do and what was going to be seen. You know. So he was very, very good at giving you some training in being an actor in front of a camera, as distinct from being on stage. You know.
He always seemed to be occupied with what he was doing or what he was about to do. And I was aware then that, perhaps for the first time, that one of the things about filming is that you have to maintain a level of concentration, even though the moments of being on camera, of actually performing, are quite minimal in the course of a day.
Initially, I was up for King Arthur, and I saw John several times, and it was right before Christmas that year, and then we broke for the Christmas holiday, and then I found out right after Christmas that I didn't get the part. And I was going out to dinner that night when I found out with Edna O'Brien, who's an Irish novelist. Well, she was at the house where the dinner party was, and I ended up sitting next to her, and she says, "Oh, so Paul, so what are you up to? What are you doing?" And normally I would have said, "Oh, nothing," but for some reason I just said, "Well, I just very nearly got a big part in a big movie." And she said, "Oh, what was that?" And I said, "Well, it's a movie that John Boorman's making. It's going to be called Excalibur." And she said, "Oh, I see." Anyway, we the dinner went on, and that was the end of the evening. And a couple of days later, my agent called and said, "Oh, John Boorman wants to see you again, but this time for the role of Percival."
I make you a knight. Rise, sir.
Percival.
Percival.
It was my first feature film, and it was set in Ireland, in the countryside of Ireland, and it was pretty magical. It was pretty magical, and it was a beautiful summer too. I was actually working at the RSC. I was playing Viola in Twelfth Night at the Aldwych in London, and they started shooting before I'd finished my run, and it was repertoire, so it was very glamorous, really, and exciting, because on a Saturday night when I'd finished 2 shows, I would be picked up by a car at the stage door, driven to the airport at sort of 12 o'clock at night, go onto an airfield, get into a tiny 2-seater plane and fly through the night across to Ireland, this beautiful starry sky with the moon, fly to Ireland, land in Dublin, get in a car, be taken to my hotel, get to my hotel about 2 in the morning, then be on set at about 7, so I'd get 5 hours sleep, and then from the stage in London, I'd be on a film set in Ireland. So it was very exciting for me. It was my kind of break, you know, break in my career.
I've made these only for you. I've mixed into them things that will heal you. Not too quickly. And they'll make you a little sleepy, so you can't escape.
My family, my kids always came with us when I made films. And my wife and the kids, and they always, so you always threw them in, you know. In fact, Charlie was, when he was 4, was in Deliverance. He was the little boy at the end when John Boyd goes back to his wife. There's a little boy. In Katrina's case, he was just the right age. He was very young, 19, I think she was at the time. And Charlie then played the young Mordred, and you know, this very blonde, beautiful boy with this malicious quality to him.
I can't believe actually it's been 30 years since, over 30 years since it's happened. And I think my role was a role called Mordred, and I played young Mordred. And I think probably I got the part probably because Robert Addy, who played Mordred older, we looked kind of similar. And so I think that's the only reason I got the part. And plus the fact that my father didn't have to pay me. So, you know, I think those were 2 reasons. Probably the money one was probably the most important one. He probably in actual fact cast Robert Addy just so he didn't have to pay me. That's probably how it went.
I would describe my father as a director as hellish, okay, if you're the child. He's absolutely wonderful to other actors and patient, and you know, really thoughtful, and allows them to take the time and does the takes. You know, if you're Charlie and I, I remember during Hope and Glory, when we were filming that, they had an incredible, so they built an entire street, very expensive set, and it was all sort of suburbia. And they created the back garden of my father's childhood home, this little sort of cabbage patch garden, and they laid grass and flowers, and there was a little bit of crazy paving going down the centre of it. And my father and the assistants had said, 20 times, don't walk on the goddamn grass. And so, all the actors are in between takes, smoking fags, chatting, and suddenly there was this scream across the lawn. Get off the fucking grass, Katrina!
I remember my first joust. It looks far worse than it feels.
Well, he, as I said, because I was in his first film, he'd come from making documentaries at BBC Bristol. And I liked him very much. He's very charming. And obviously, I thought had a brilliant mind, a brilliant filmic mind. He's quite strong. He knows what he wants, and he wants to get what he wants, actually.
Can't get you blowing. Do something like this, Don't just walk in like this,
We were also inexperienced, so we didn't really have anything to measure it against, And he was very patient with our lack of experience. He was dealing with many actors who just had no idea about the technicalities of filmmaking. You know, he was very, very patient with us, and I pissed him off one time because I didn't realise, I had no idea about setting up shots, and we sort of rehearsed this scene, and then I went away and they set the shot up, and then I came back and I said, oh no, I don't want to do it like that, because I was used to working in the theatre where you change things like that, you know. So I was like, no, that doesn't work. You know, she wouldn't ever do that. She'd stop, or I can't remember what the technicalities were. And he got very cross with me because, you know, he just set the whole shot up. And there I was being a bolshy actress saying, oh, no, I'm not going to do it like that.
Oh, I think all of us were intimidated by working with John. He, of course, was already a legendary director. I mean, he had done Point Blank, Helen, the Pacific, I think, and a very early film, Catch Us If You Can. That's the first time I came across him. I think it's a Dave Clark film that he did in black and white.
What will you do in Spain?
Teach tourist skin diving. Ever done it?
I had to do it once for a commercial.
John was an intimidating presence on the set, and he marshalled that huge production with great grace, but you certainly felt that you didn't want to get on his wrong side. There was a rumor going around in the first couple of days that he had fired 2 dogs, 2 big Irish red setters, and that the owner of the 2 dogs was slumped off with these 2, you know, now out of work dogs. And so they were saying, oh my God, if he's firing dogs, we better keep our heads down.
He took his angst out on the dogs. I remember he sacked the dogs because they wouldn't perform to his pleasure. They looked terrifying. They didn't act terrifying. So he said, sack those dogs. I don't want them paid.
He was wonderful to work with. He too is one that doesn't suffer fools gladly, but if you've got your stuff together, then he'd just leave you alone and let you get on and do the job. I went up to him a couple of days after we'd started shooting, rather, and I said, John, am I doing what you want? Is that what? And he said, well, yes, I wouldn't have cast you otherwise. In other words, you know, you do your job and I'll do mine. Okay. So yeah, he was very good to work with though.
I can't hear you, sorrow! The misery. And what he's saying about the night, looking at him, looking at the night, reacting, getting more angry, okay?
I was on this beautiful white horse, my suit of armor, and we're up somewhere near Sally Gap. And in the movie, it's a time of pestilence. There's smoke and fire and refugees everywhere, and all the knights are questing for the Grail, looking for the Grail, and it's just a bad time in the state of Camelot. And there was a break in filming, and they had a lot of the extras were traveling people. And there was a break in film. I was on my horse, and this guy came up and says, "Sir, how much for the horse?" I says, "What?" He says, "How much for the horse?" I said, no, you don't understand. It's not my horse. "Ah, come on now, sir. How much?" I said, I can't sell it. It's not my horse, dude. It's not my horse. You know, it belongs to you. You have got to speak to that guy. No, I don't want to speak. I want to speak to you. And I'm not telling you a lie. He reached into his rags and pulled out a fistful of notes. I kid you not, it would have choked a donkey. I don't know how many thousands of pounds were in that. He was prepared, come on, to barter for this horse. Wouldn't take no for an answer at all.
At the start of that film, it was only 14 armours, and it was basically seven principals. Lancelot, Gawain, whoever. And that's what it started off as, 7 armours, and I thought, well, great, you know. That then escalated to 14 armours because they decided they needed doubles for them. And that then escalated to the army, and then other characters came in. Anyway, the total figures, cut a long story short, it finished up from 14 armours to 106, and only had 3 months to make them.
I don't think I've ever been on a film where there was an armourer making armour, real armour for the actors to wear. And so you couldn't really daintily walk from one place to another. You moved one leg, then you moved the other leg.
This is pretty good.
It was difficult in that it was uncomfortable. There have been 2 movies in my life where one of the primary memories is of severe discomfort. Excalibur was one of them because we were in armour pretty much all the way through the movie. And the other one was Dune, where we wore these quilted rubber suits in the Mexican desert. And one of my principal memories is of getting back to my camper van at the end of the day and taking off my clothes and then dealing with all the bruises and nips and cuts that you got from this damned armor, because it was everywhere. And we weren't allowed to take it off. You couldn't free yourself of this stuff at lunchtime because it would take the whole of lunchtime to take it off and put it back on again.
I had to make a decision about what period I would make it in. You know, and I wanted to tell the story right on the cusp of between the Druids and Christianity. On the other hand, you can't defeat people's expectations. So it's a great mistake of trying to make it kind of real, that these were, rough chieftains in the Middle Ages, which is pointless because the myth is much stronger than the reality. So I chose this sort of 12th century armor because people associated it. They'd seen this before. They'd seen the 12th century armor, and so which was a long way off from the period that I was interested in, which was right on the beginning of perhaps the 6th century. But I put it psychologically, it was on the cusp of Druids and Christianity. So Merlin, spoke of the one God taking over from the many gods. We were taking it out of time, out of period, into the world of myth.
I will show you Nicol Williamson's hat, which is this. Now, and it was a sort of skull cap, and Nicol had to wear this all the time, and of course a sort of siege engine thing, great big thing, just sort of fell on his head, and he had a little break from this, but I remember him saying, I said, "Are you all right, Nicol?" He said, "Tweet, tweet." And that was all he said, and then he went down for a bit. He was all right for a while, and then they had a break, and this was that. But this was his hat, and he wore that all the bloody time. I mean, obviously it had, padding in it and this, that, and the other, but probably saved his bloody life, because it might have killed him, I think. Anyway, there you go.
Well, I always had in mind to cast Nicol Williamson. I wanted this rather eccentric way of playing Merlin. Orion at the time had made several films with Nicol Williamson. They'd all failed. And they said to me, "Look, you cast anyone in the world you want, but not Nicol Williamson." So I looked and thought about other people, and I just couldn't get Nicol out of my head. And eventually, I was having lunch with Mary Selway, who was the casting director, and I said, "Mary, you know what? I'm going to cast Nicol, and to hell with Orion. I don't care what they say."
Nicol Williamson, well, there's a character. He was great. He was very much larger than life. I mean, he was a big man, literally, and also spiritually. And the thing about Nicol was that he was an amazingly talented actor, but he didn't suffer fools gladly. He was never one of those kinds of people. So he would occasionally he would occasionally blow up a little bit. And but he was wonderful. He was wonderful to me. I happened to be getting married during the filming, and he gave me a sort of stag night at the place that he was staying, which was the Irish Arts Club in Dublin, which was a sister to the Chelsea Arts Club in London. And I remember walking in with Nigel Terry, with King Arthur, and one of the assistant directors into this little private dining room, and Nicol had about a dozen bottles of wine from the vintage of my birth, open breathing on the sideboard, and that was just the beginning.
Basil, come and earn your stipend.
That's it.
Left a little, right a little. Very quiet. Golden shot. Silver bullet.
Yes, hold please.
That's it. We're off to the moon.
And it wasn't a predictable Merlin in any way at all. First of all, he had that steel helmet on, and he had the staff, and he had that very eccentric way of delivering his lines.
I dreamt of the dragon.
I have awoken him. Can't you see all around you the dragon?
I remember I had to wear a suit in the suit of armor. For some reason, it was digging into my neck, and I had to say, the land from here to the sea shall be yours if you enforce the king's will. And the armor was stinging in my neck, which made my voice go higher, and it was like, the land from here to the sea shall be yours if you enforce the king's will. And Nico Williams said, what is he talking about? What are you saying, man? And then he had to do some Gaelic. Anal na drach, the dragon's breath.
Anal na drach, urfas bethad, dochiel dienle.
It really is a kind of power of the mind, and his power is very much that of the mind, in another world, someone who can make things happen, who can take control. And well, we've all seen the power of voodoo in African tribes when the chiefs or the witch doctors pointed to a man, and in 48 hours he goes into the wilderness, or he goes into and he dies. Because it has been, his death is brought upon by a state of mind. He knows that is the finish of his life. In a way, Merlin has that kind of power. It's very much that kind of power. He has that will to make things happen.
The Lady of the Lake. Take it!
The Arthurian legend was a story that we were brought up with. My father told us the story every night at bedtime. He would make up all the stories. It was fabulous. And then it was a story in his own childhood he's fascinated with. There's a scene in Hope and Glory, which is the story of his own childhood. And when you see the film, it more or less starts off, there's wars declared, and you see a little boy playing in the bushes, and he's holding the Knights of, the Round Table, and he's playing. And that's my father as a child. So this is a story that we all know.
I think it rained pretty much every day that we were shooting that picture for 5 months. It was heartbreaking, but on the other hand, the wonderful light in Ireland is that because it's moist, because there's so much moisture in the air, even when it's not raining, that you get this refraction of light, so that you get a kind of softness in the light, and it's very beautiful. And all the scenes in the forest are all lit. And we were using green filters over the lights so that you got a kind of green light. And wherever there was moss, we'd put a light on it, a green light onto the moss, to give it a kind of luminosity. So it felt like a myth rather than reality. That's what we were consciously trying to achieve, was a kind of mystery, a magical feeling about it, that it was another world, if you like.
Desperately want sunshine for it so that we get shafts of light coming through these trees around here. But the problem is that we've already done one shot in the middle of the sequence, which establishes sunshine, and now this afternoon we haven't got any sunshine, and the problem is to match the shot for shot. I've used mixed light to try and give a strange sort of magic feeling to the picture because it's legend and it's magic, and just trying to introduce odd colours into it. They're not real, obviously, and nobody knows the source of them. So one has to be very careful in the choice of colours. And I stuck mainly with browns and greens and peacock blues. Those are the colours that it seems to suggest to me because they complement black somehow. Yes, okay, Barry.
And there was one morning, we were filming the Guinevere Arthur wedding when we were in the silver armour. We changed from the black to the silver. And John was waiting for the light. It had been a misty, damp morning. We were filming in, can't remember the name of this location, but we were told it was one of the oldest oak woods left in Europe. And John wouldn't roll the camera. He wanted kind of dappled sunlight coming through the trees. And in fact, he got it, and the scene looks spectacular.
The wedding day itself, the filming of it, was just one of those legend moments in filmmaking. As you can see, there's a strong tree canopy here. We've actually got a bit of sunlight, but when the day came for filming, we were under cloud and it was pretty dull. And I remember the lighting cameraman was throwing a huge amount of light to try to lift the thing. But if you remember in the film, the lines of the society and the princesses and so on, and princes, all in armor and the most amazing costumes designed by Bob Ringwood. And the lighting cameraman was really suffering, he really, I think. But suddenly the clouds broke open just as in synchronicity, just when we were ready to film. And a huge sunlight came down into the arena, if you like, and illuminated this wedding thing. And we shot it, and it was absolutely beautiful. And I remember years later seeing the cover of American Cinematographer, and it was a still taken from that, a wide shot of the wedding of Arthur and Guinevere, which Alex Thompson lit for John Boorman.
I remember on one occasion John was shooting at the back lot, a night sequence. He had Gabriel Byrne on his horse, who was going to be riding across the clouds, I think, and they were setting it up. But John decided at the last minute to point the camera at a different angle. And there in the background you could see one or two lights out there, somewhere in Bray, that were lighting. And obviously they didn't have electricity in the time of King Arthur, so that was a slight problem. And it was difficult to kind of get it out of the shot. So somebody said, ring the ESP, the electricity supply board. They have a mobile unit to go around. They might want to come up and suggest something. So I rang, and there was a 24-hour mobile call, and they said, where are you? We said, up at Ardmore, we're making a film. And they had a look out, and I said, okay, we'll see what we can do. And one guy sent the other guy down to the grid. And all I can imagine is that, and they did it by phone from my office in the studio. And my vision of the whole thing is the guy standing there with 3 or 4 or 5 different levers to pull. And he kind of pulled lever A, and the lights would go off in half a Bray over on the left. And he said, no, that's the wrong one. So he pushed the lever back, lights come back on again. Did it 1, 2 or 3 times. Different parts of Bray went out. Middle of the evening when people were sitting down having a cup of tea, watching television, whatever they were doing, lights would go out. And then he pulled one lever, and the lights that I needed to get out were out. So was another quarter of Bray or third of Bray somewhere else. And he said, we got it, great. He said, give us a ring when he's finished filming and we'll put it back on. And I said, well, what are you going to do about all the people? I will just tell them there's a power cut. I don't think we'd get away with that now, but at that time, it worked.
Oh, you're teasing me.
I will love you always. I will love you as my queen and as the wife of my best friend. And while you live, I will love no other.
My memories of Nicholas, the late Nicholas Clay, are just a sweetheart, beautiful, outside and in. Just a gentle, lovely gentleman. And we spent a lot of free time together and used to go off and sightsee a bit together. But I remember with the scene, our erotic scene, the night in the forest together, was really quite comical because we were, first of all, it was freezing cold and we had to be naked. And also, John had planned it to look rather like the Garden of Eden. the prop boys had put down a bed of moss, and after a while we realised it was full of ants. We were being bitten to death. So we had to keep a straight face and be very sort of erotic and sensual with all these elements kind of struggling to get out of control.
When I was casting, both here and in London, I got a lot of young actors in and I had them improvise, and I did workshops with them and to see, you know, how they... And Nigel Terry, I'd already seen some of his work. He was very, very good. And I thought, though it was a huge task for anyone to play that role, because it starts as a boy of 15, 16, and he goes through to being an old man. And, you know, Nigel, the more I worked with him and tested him, the more I could see he had the qualities, the ability to do that great range. And that's why I cast him.
I think he found me a bit of a trial, and I think he sort of got, I think he got it out of me in the end. I will say that. But I know that I know that I probably behaved badly in some respects, and in other respects I didn't. But I like John immensely, and I thank him very, very much indeed for letting me play this part, or getting me to do it, and dragging me kicking and screaming to do the bloody thing.
Well, I'd never worked with Nigel before, but he was a very, very respected and admired stage actor, and I'd seen him often, and he was really, really good. And in this movie, I think he was much better than I would have been. He really had a profound understanding of the spiritual nature of the character and the whole story, and yeah, he was really very good.
Well, I just think he's a very fine actor. Very fine actor.
Were I not king, I would make you pay with your life for what you've said.
And delightful to work with. A very modest, truthful actor. And yeah, I think the span from the young, naive, eager Arthur to the old, weathered, experienced Arthur, I think he handled beautifully for a young actor.
Accept my forgiveness and put your heart to rest. We've suffered too long. I've always loved you, and I still love you.
Excalibur is in many respects an action movie. But one of the charming aspects of John's direction, but also very difficult, was that he had no real interest in filming the choreographed parts of the action. We learned early on that what John really liked was when the rehearsed bit ended. And we learned very quickly not to stop when the rehearsed part of the stunts and the action came to an end. Because John would yell at us, keep going, don't stop, don't stop. What he really liked was the improvised action, which, given that swords and battle axes and in full armor, could be quite scary.
I suddenly realized that there were wooden arrow shafts being fired down from a tower, and that one of them, just missed my horse. And I remember just riding out of the shot and kind of coming up to where John and the cameraman were. And I said, I think, I got on my high horse, if you'll excuse a kind of pun. And I said, I think this is really rather dangerous, I don't think there should be these loose. And John said, oh, get back in. Just get back in. Nobody's going to get hurt or something. So he could be really tough.
In the big battle scene at the end, he had the same 10 actors, coming in from the side, falling down dead under the level of the camera, crawling out on hands and knees in full armor, getting up and then coming back in again and falling down. He was recycling the same actors over and over again to try and make it look like he had more actors than he had.
Working under your dad as a director,
Did you feel awkward at any time? Like you did the nude scene in front of the blazing fire and stuff. I mean, did you feel funny like your dad was the director or?
Oh, I think it was so. I think it wasn't that awkward for me, weirdly, because you know for me it's just acting.
My lord.
Well, somebody told me I got a round of applause in a cinema for being able to do that scene in a full suit of armour. Again, it was going back to that thing of not knowing what we were doing. We did it once in front of the fire. Then Coram would get on, and then I would get on, and then they took Katrina out and sent her home. And I said, why is she going home? And they said, oh, well, it's just you now doing close-up. So they stuck in this pink cushion, and I had to hump this cushion for an hour with the sweat rolling off me, with no Katrina there. Very strange to me, but the cameraman, Alex Thompson, assured me that, you know, believe me, when you see it, it's going to look good.
But I think it was very uncomfortable and awkward for Colin Redgrave and poor Gabriel Byrne. I mean, they had to, you know, rip off the clothing of a sort of 17-year-old girl who's the director's daughter. I mean, I look back and think, God, that was really awkward. But I would say, of course, once you've been shagged by a knight in armour, there's absolutely, watched by your father, there's absolutely no looking back.
Is it mine?
Not because I was in the film, but it just was purely cinematic. Those horses in the dark, the steam coming out of their nostrils, the way they moved from one hoof to another. It was... And then, boom, 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 the music of Wagner coming in behind that. The combination of Trevor Jones and Boorman to put Wagner behind the Arthurian legends was an example of pure imaginative cinema. And I thought, wow, this is incredible.
Well, Wagner, of course, dealt with this legend, you know. I mean, Parsifal is his version of the Grail legend. I went to Bayreuth to see The Ring, Wagner's Ring. I spent a week there with my daughter, Telsha, and we watched it through, and it was so powerful and so inspiring that at that point I thought, I'm going to use this Wagner's music, and I did.
I think it was an absolute stroke of genius for John to use Wagner because he'd been to Bayreuth the year before, and he'd seen the entire Ring cycle. And the whole of the Arthurian legend, that mythic quality, was what Wagner had brought to the Ring cycle, to that story. And I think we'd be hard-pressed to find a contemporary composer, or even if you look back in the history of Hollywood music, that, you know, even people like Korngold and so on would, I doubt, have brought that profundity. This was Wagner, who's one of the geniuses of all time musically.
Test of time? Yes, I definitely do. I mean, I still, in fact, I did another one about 3 weeks ago, an email from somebody, oh, are you the same Paul Jeffrey that was in Excalibur? It was one of my favorite movies, I loved it. And that's been a fairly regular occurrence over the last 30 years, actually.
I cannot live.
Drink from the chalice and you will be reborn in the land with you.
I suppose, is it old-fashioned given the technology we have now? I think its old-fashionedness in technology is a part of its charm. It's like a hand-painted storybook as opposed to a sort of modern contemporary storybook. The illustration of it, the visuals of it match the subject, actually. They have a feeling of like the illuminated texts of the monks. It has a sort of real hand-painted feel to it, I think.
Knights of the Round Table.
I think what's amazing about it is that everything was done in camera. You know, there's not a single effect. There was no blue screen. And so I think it's an extraordinary achievement in terms of the narrative, because the narrative is, you know, from King Arthur, who's born, right the way through to his old age. So it's spanning everything in that legend. You know, he's amalgamated my father, so many strands of the story. And I think that in itself is a great achievement.
See, this stone really is what you can work on at the end. Stand on there a moment.
Okay, here we go. First position, please.
When you consider that it is sort of 30 years on, it's still pretty powerful, and people still remember that you know, that fantastic music as they're going down the cherry blossom trees, and you know, the King Arthur lives again.
What would be your best memories of working on Excalibur?
The fact that somehow that I did it at all, and that the fact that I had the opportunity, Boorman cast me to do it, and really that's it. Really, it's nothing. I don't have anything. I mean, you know, we've talked about various incidents, and you know, Nicole and so on and so forth. I think that a lot of people have gone. I'm afraid. The fact of actually doing it, that's all really. I don't even think beyond that really. You know, I'm glad I did the thing. I'm glad that it's well liked and loved by some people. That's enough. That's enough.
John's film was a real movie, so we were all very, very excited about that. And of course we all felt we'd launched into movies, you know. That was not the case, but we all felt, wow, we're going to be big movie stars after this.
Well, in retrospect now, you know, you look back and through rose-colored glasses and you think, wow, what an incredible experience it was. We did feel kind of chosen in a way by Boorman.
It was an extraordinary experience, and I think for all of us who were in Excalibur, and it began so many amazing careers. You think of you know, John just chose extraordinary actors who at that time were completely unknown. I mean, maybe they'd done a bit of theatre, but in terms of film, they were totally unknown, and John had an instinct about actors, and so many of them went on to have incredible careers.
Well, this is the sword from the film, and I must say, it's a very strange feeling because it feels so familiar, and it feels like no time has passed at all. And yet, of course, there's been a whole universe of times that have gone by. But there's a moment where this sword comes up. It's absolutely, again, going back to the notion of how beautiful the imagery in the film is, where the sword comes up out of the water. It's kind of emotional, really, because you think back over 30 years, and it's still a beautiful thing to hold. It's a beautiful piece of art.
It's been such a grand experience to be invited to reminisce about the first important movie that I was ever involved with. Because many of the people who I was meeting for the first time have become friends and colleagues. And it was an exciting and adventurous time spending those actually mostly glorious summer months in Ireland with these extraordinary people, and of course to be able to recall that there was a time when I worked for John Boorman. This is I wish something like this happened with every project, but then you don't always feel like this about every project you do.
had been a lifelong ambition of mine to make this film. And when I saw that shot of Arthur in the ship going out into the horizon, I felt that I'd completed my work.